Neil Godfrey is the leading expert on family and children's finances for 35 years. More importantly, Neil is a pioneer in the field, as she's the first to discuss the topic of kids and money. Neil started a career in banking as one of the first female executives at the Chase Manhattan Bank. I'm not sure when you started, but I was in Citibank back in the early 80s, and it was very, very tough for a woman to rise to the ranks that you rose to, so congratulations. She also became the president of the first women's bank and founder of the first children's bank. In 1989, Neil formed Children's Financial Network, whose mission is to educate children and their parents about money. She's the author of 27 books and has been on the New York Times bestseller list with several of them. She's also been on a number of television shows, from CNN, CNBC to ABC Money to everything else. I am thrilled to be able to bring up Neil Godfrey as our January kickoff speaker. Neil?
I was asked to do today was to talk a little bit about my journey as kind of a woman going through some of the trials and tribulations. I did start out in 1972 at age 21. You can do the math if you like. As one of the first female executives that Chase Manhattan decided to train and hire to go through our training program. There were two of us who went into the training program, the executive training program. By the way, they did not need two women, they needed one of us. And I never knew if I was Miss Congeniality and the runner-up or the one that they really wanted. They made me wear a sash most of the time, so I was probably the runner-up. Went through the training program, became an executive at Chase, rose through the ranks, headed up one of our global divisions called Consumer Goods and Merchandising in our corporate bank and lending to the major corporations in the country. I was the one who made the decision to lend to a real weird guy down in Bentonville, Arkansas. Yeah. Actually, when I showed up, he thought I was a male because my name is Neil. So he had the list of bankers that were coming, and it was to do a canoe trip down the Buffalo River. Now, stay with me for a minute. When Sam Walton is standing there and says to me, "You're a woman." Yeah. And he said, "It's okay. You know what? Your money is the same color as their money. We're going to canoe." He was totally cool. Love this guy. So he goes, "Have you ever been in a canoe before?" Yeah. Never been in a canoe. But I played Minnehaha in Hiawatha and in first grade. And you do this thing. So I was in a canoe. It was paper. It was a cutout. But anyway, my whole thing was not to dump Sam Walton, right, in the drink, and I didn't. I mean, that's amazing. Okay, so anyway, at Chase, I did rise through the ranks, and I did some merger and acquisition work. In 1981, I guess it was lucky enough to put together, at that point, it was the largest merger in the history of the United States. It was the DuPont-Conoco merger. We put the bank financing together. Chase did. We led that, and that was cool. And it was also the only merger at that point that was kept a secret from the arbitrageurs. So on Monday morning when we went to market, I got a call from Milken and Bosky screaming at me, "How come you didn't tell us?" Yeah. Anyway. Jail was one of those things that always frightened me. But after 13 years, I hit the glass ceiling at Chase. Well, actually, it wasn't glass because you can kind of break through glass. It was more like cement. But you can actually blow cement. I think it was kryptonite. I think it was, and that was okay. So what I did is I went and I became president of the First Women's Bank. Now, why did we need a First Women's Bank? It's because the Fair Credit Act was not enacted until 1974. And before that time, women could not get credit on their own name. Isn't that goofy? Yeah. How many of you remember that? Share with me. Okay. That's it? That means I have shoes older than the rest of you here, okay, and I'm wearing them? Okay. Yeah, right. So we needed a First Women's Bank. It was on Park and 57th Street. It was sort of we were in the news all the time. And Do you want me to, can I tell a story about a goofy one? Sure. Okay. All right, so the board of directors, in all its wisdom, decided it was going to sell the First Women's Bank. Now, here's the scene. I was pregnant with my second child, and you know that the end of pregnancy, when you're like 18 months pregnant, right? And you look like a Volkswagen bus, right? Yeah, and you fall asleep in every meeting and drool. Yeah, I mean, that was sort of where I was in pregnancy at that point. Anyway, my board set up a meeting with a group of investment bankers that were coming in with clients to buy the First Women's Bank. And they decided that it made sense to put together a group of Saudi Arabian investors to buy the Women's Bank. What were you thinking? Right. Okay. So it was interesting. It's 8 o'clock on a Friday night. I have to meet with these guys. Now, the Saudis were all interesting because they all attended Harvard University. And my guess was at Harvard they were speaking English. But when they hit my office, they forgot how to speak English. And what could be a really quick 15-minute meeting was now going to take hours because they had to speak through an interpreter. So the first thing was that the introduction started around the room. And they were all princes. So there was Prince Mohammed, Prince Fuad, Prince Mohammed, Prince Fuad, Fuad. But so when the introduction came to me, I knew that the title of bank president was not exalted enough. So I said, I'm Neil Godfrey. I'm the goddess of money. And I knew that instantaneously put them at ease. So anyway, we started talking about the real business things, again, through the interpreter. So we discussed return on investment, return on equity, loan to deposits, deposits loan, on and on. And then the question of the evening came through the interpreter from Prince Fuad. And the interpreter said, Miss Godfrey, Prince Fuad would like to know the difference between the woman's bank and a real bank. I was pregnant, remember the brain damage. And I thought, no, I misunderstood the question. I said, I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please? Prince Fuad would like to know the difference between the woman's bank and a real bank. And I said, would you kindly tell Prince Fuad that the difference between the woman's bank and a real bank is that once a month we get cranky and call all the loans. So that sale worked out real well. So interesting enough that there was always then a lawyer with me during the meetings. I don't get it. But anyway, they didn't buy the bank, but I did have the child, so that worked out well. So while I was at First Women's Bank, I watched women be disempowered handling their own money, and that seemed, kind of goofy to me. So I did research and found out that it was because we were never taught anything as children about money. So I decided I wasn't going to pass that legacy on to my children. I schlepped them all over the place to find books to teach my little ones about money. There were no books. So we had been to all the bookstores, and there just were no books to teach kids about money. So my little daughter, during one of these going around to Barnes & Noble all over the place, said to me, Mommy, why don't you just write the books? And she, was like, whoa, I know how to be a bank president. I don't know how to write books. And then, of course, how many of you have kids? By the way, how many of you have teenagers? So does that make you incredibly stupid and a source of embarrassment? Yeah, okay, just wondering. Anyway, so my 4-year-old at that point said to me, are you afraid? Well, being the sophisticated mother that I am, you crouch, establish eye contact, and go, no, I'm not afraid. Anyway, so of course I was afraid. I was way outside my comfort level. But the fact of the matter was, and when you're moving from the corporate world into the world of entrepreneurship, how many of you have done that? Okay, do you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, ugh. Okay, call me, I'm up. Yeah. It's not only the idea of being able to follow your passion, you also have to know, are you going to be cut out to handle that panic moment of what were you thinking? I give a what were you thinking award away, by the way. Okay, maybe Donald's won 2 of them. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that I knew I had to go do that. So, okay, fine, I can write a book. I created cartoon characters because I knew that if you were going to educate kids, you have to entertain them. And my characters have financial personalities. That's how we're connected with money, not our socioeconomic level. We're connected by the way we handle money. So we're savers or spenders. So I had Penny Bright, today's savvy feline, an entrepreneur. She knows her fashion and her tax code. Dollar Bill Buck, who wants to save his money but gets his attention diverted. The Market Brothers, Bull and Bear. And they run the Blue Chip Deli in Green Street Commons where they live. And sometimes they would burn the buns and have to throw the buns away, and I call them junk buns. Anyway, so they drove a special car called a convertible debenture. I entertained myself for hours on this. So if you're going to start a topic and be an entrepreneur, you go to the world's largest publishing company, which is Simon & Schuster at that point. So I wrote the book, ran into Simon & Schuster and said, ta-da! No one's teaching kids about money. We can own this. We can change the world. We can teach them at home. We can teach them at school. That's what we have to do. And they said, thanks so much for coming in. It's a cute idea. But there are no books to teach kids about money. Therefore, it is not a topic of interest. Think where the publishing world is today. Just saying. Okay. So I walked out of there, and you know the deal. Don't cry in front of them, right? How many know that deal? Don't cry in front of them. So I got out to Park Avenue and then started to cry, and it was like, oh my God. So it was like, as an entrepreneur, it's not that they said no, it's that you didn't do a good job in terms of explaining it to them, because it makes sense, right? So, proof of concept, they needed proof of concept. So I opened up the first children's bank at FAO Schwartz in 1988 and an Institute for Youth Entrepreneurship up in Harlem to work with at-risk kids. So I'd be both ends of the spectrum, bring everyone into the economy, make a difference. Made sense to me. Princess Diana, by the way, flew over to open up accounts for her kids. I know. By the way, illegal to hold U.S. dollars outside the U.K. Did I zip it up? Yeah. Great. Open accounts. You go to jail. I don't. You sign my signature card. I'll get in the paper when you go to jail. Anyway, so both the kids have accounts.